The fluorescent lights of the courtroom hummed a soundtrack to the slow-motion train wreck that was my life. Sienna, my wife, or rather, my soon-to-be ex-wife, sat across the aisle, her posture radiating an almost unbearable smugness. She was the picture of a woman who had already won, a predator who'd cornered her prey, confident in her kill. I'd seen that look before many times during the last year, and it always ignited a cold fury in the pit of my stomach. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. We were supposed to be a family. We had a son, Ethan, who was the light of my life, the reason I got out of bed every morning. Now we were here, in this sterile courtroom, fighting over his future like it was a prize to be won, and Sienna, with her twisted sense of entitlement, seemed absolutely convinced that the prize was hers. The whole mess started, I guess, with her needing more excitement. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was some deep-seated need for validation from other men. I don't know. All I know is I came home early from a business trip one Thursday, and her car wasn't in the garage. She was supposed to be picking Ethan up from his friend's house. I tried calling her. No answer. I was starting to get really worried, and then the neighbor called, saying that she saw Sienna at the park. So I drove there and walked past the trees. I heard voices, her voice and another man's voice, laughing. My heart hammered in my chest. I walked past the tree, and there she was, sitting on the picnic blanket, arms wrapped around another guy's neck, kissing him in broad daylight at the park. When she saw me, she didn't say anything. She just stared at me. It was like I was a ghost or like I was an interruption. She just sat there with him. It was like I was in a movie. The subsequent weeks were a blur of shattered trust, broken promises, and the agonizing realization that the woman I loved was a complete stranger. She had no remorse, no guilt. She blamed me. She said I was always working, that I was boring, that she needed more. So she went and found more. And the more came in the form of a series of men, whom she seemed to parade as trophies in front of her equally immoral group of friends. The divorce was a brutal dance of accusations and denials. Sienna painted me as an absent father, a workaholic who prioritized his career over his family. She twisted every situation, every memory, to fit her narrative. A narrative designed to make her the victim and me the villain. And she was good at it. Damn good. I was left reeling, trying to defend myself against her lies while still trying to be a present father to Ethan. Her cruelty didn't stop there. She dragged our friends into it, poisoning their views of me, turning our circle into a battlefield. She had this twisted gleam in her eye whenever she talked about me, a gleam that screamed of a desire to destroy me. But the most agonizing part was seeing the effect it had on Ethan. The constant tension between his parents, the whispered arguments, the awkward silences that filled the car rides. I felt like I was failing him, that my love for him wasn't enough to shield him from the ugliness of our situation. And then there was the custody battle. It was the final showdown, the last arena where we were set to tear each other apart. I knew Sienna would fight tooth and nail. I knew she would leverage every lie, every manipulation she had at her disposal to gain full custody of Ethan. She even had the gall to tell her friends that she was going to win, laughing as if the whole situation was a game, a contest she was destined to win. Her confidence was infuriating. But I had a plan. A carefully constructed plan I'd been working on for months. A plan that would flip the script and expose her for the cruel, self-centered woman she truly was. The judge entered, a stern-looking woman with a weary expression. She spoke slowly, methodically, outlining the legal framework, the procedures, before finally getting to the point. The silence in the room was so thick, I could practically taste it. My heart pounded in my chest, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. I knew that, in the eyes of the law, I had done everything right, but legal battles are not always rational, and I knew in the end I was up against a skilled manipulator. The judge began, her voice echoing in the silence, has reviewed all the evidence presented by both parties, considered the testimonies, and has come to a conclusion. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room and settling on me for a brief moment, a look that seemed to hold a hint of understanding. My stomach clenched. I saw Sienna shift in her seat, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. She was practically glowing with confidence. her eyes darting to her friends in the back of the courtroom, a silent message of victory. I saw them nodding back at her, their eyes reflecting her gloating expression. They had all heard her brags, her promises of the win. The court finds that it is in the best interest of the minor child, Ethan Miller, to reside primarily with the father, Mr. David Miller. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Sienna's smile faltered, her eyes widening in disbelief. I could see the color drain from her face as the words hung in the air like a death sentence. The judge continued outlining the details of the custody agreement, the visitation schedule, her voice a steady drone in the sudden chaos of my ex-wife's mind. But I could no longer hear her. All I could hear was my ex-wife's friends gasp and start whispering, their expressions of shock mirroring her own. I watched, mesmerized, as Sienna's face crumpled. Her jaw dropped open, and her hand flew to her mouth as if she were physically ill. The smugness, the arrogance, the cruelty melted away, replaced by a look of raw, naked vulnerability. For a moment, I actually felt a pang of something akin to pity, but it quickly vanished, replaced by a cold, satisfying sense of justice. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed her to understand. I needed her to see the consequences of her actions. As the judge was wrapping up, I stood up and walked to Sienna. She didn't flinch, staring blankly in front of her. Her face was ashen. I leaned down, my voice a low, controlled whisper only for her ears. "Remember all those times you bragged to your friends?" I asked, my eyes never leaving hers. She did not respond, her eyes glazed over as if in shock. "Remember all the lies you told, the things you said about me, how you were going to win?" She flinched, the question pulling her out of the stupor. She looked at me, and a single tear fell down her cheek. "Well, guess what, Sienna? Today you lost. You lost everything. You lost your family. You lost your son. And you lost the right to lie to anyone about me ever again." Her face contorted, tears now streaming down her cheeks, her body shaking. She tried to open her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Only gasping breaths. The weight of her defeat seemed to physically crush her, and she looked like a wounded animal, trapped and vulnerable. I saw her friends look at her with pity and then look away, unable to meet her gaze, afraid to be caught in the crossfire of her humiliation. I stood up straight, a sense of peace washing over me. It was done. The battle was over. I looked to the back of the courtroom and saw my lawyer smiling at me. He gave me a slight nod and I knew we did it. We finally did it. I turned to leave, my footsteps echoing in the courtroom, a symphony of my own vindication. I looked back one last time to see Sienna sitting there, still in shock, her world crashing down around her. She was alone, utterly and completely alone, and that was all she deserved. I walked out of that courtroom a free man, a father who was finally going to get to raise his son in a loving, stable environment. The scars of the past year will always be there, but now they were scars of survival, scars of victory, and I will bear them with pride. As I drove home, the sun felt brighter, the air felt cleaner. I called Ethan and told him I was coming to pick him up. "Really?" he yelled excitedly. "Yay! Can we get ice cream?" I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd had in a long time. "Absolutely, son. Anything you want." Sienna is still around. She's still technically Ethan's mother. She's not completely gone from our lives, but her visits are monitored, and she has no say in how Ethan is raised. She has lost her power over us. She's been humbled, and in her eyes I see fear. A fear that she will never again hold power over anyone, and a fear that no one will ever respect her again. It is a fitting end for a woman who thought her lies and manipulations would go unpunished. For me, it was a very satisfying revenge. And now I have my son, and that's all that matters. So guys, if you all liked today's story, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon. Thank you for watching.